By the end of this lesson, you should be able to convert strings to different data types. Right guys, in the previous lesson, we learned how to read input from the standard input or keyboard. Today, we're going to look at how we can convert strings into numbers. Now Morwa, do you remember that temperature conversion program?
Yes, I wanted to be able to convert any degrees Fahrenheit temperature to degrees Celsius.
Well, let's open that program and I'll show you how to do it. We're going to read from the standard input again. To do that, we need to declare and create a buffered reader object. Remember to import all the classes in the java.io package and add throws IO exception to the main method header. Okay guys, now save your program and compile it to make sure you haven't made any typing errors. Now you can add a system.out.print statement that prompts users to enter the degrees Fahrenheit temperature they want to convert. Well done, Morwa. Your prompt, please enter the Fahrenheit temperature, is what we call a user-friendly prompt. The prompts and output that users see form the user interface of the program. So, it's important that they should be user-friendly. Now, users must know what input the program is waiting for and what information must be displayed as output at all times. Also, the names must abide by Java's syntax rules.
So what are the rules for variable names?
So far, we've needed names for classes, variables, and methods. Any names or identifiers, as they are called, must start with a letter, uppercase or lowercase. After that, any combination of letters, numbers, and underscores may be used. There may be no spaces or special characters in the identifier. The identifier may not be a reserved word. Lastly, always remember that Java is case sensitive. Here are some examples of valid and invalid identifiers. Besides the rules for identifiers, there are also conventions for naming classes, variables, and methods. Now, conventions are not rules, so if you don't follow them, your code will still compile without errors. However, it's a good idea to follow the conventions because it makes your code that much easier to read. The designers of the Java libraries, they also follow these conventions. According to the conventions, class names should always start with a capital letter. The first letter of any further words in the name should also be capitalized. Class names should consist of singular nouns such as square or adjectives such as make square. The conventions for naming variables are that they should start with a lowercase letter. Any further words in the name should start with a capital letter, and only nouns should be used. In terms of convention, methods are given verbs or a combination of verbs and nouns for their names. They must also start with a lowercase letter, and any following words should start with a capital letter. Now, most important of all, identifiers should be meaningful. Now, having said that, what name do you think we could give the variable that holds the temperature for users to enter?
Temp input.
I like that. Now remember, it's all one word and all in lowercase, except for the I. Now, what data type must it be?
String?
Correct. String is the name of a class. It should have a capital letter. Right. We have the name and the type for this variable. Now we must initialize it or give it a value. We must assign a string object to it. So, how do we get a string object?
Keyboard.readline.
Well done, Kamal. Now the readLine method returns a string object, which is the user's input. String temp input gets the value keyboard.readLine. open and close round brackets, semicolon. Now we come to the next problem. We can't do arithmetic with strings, so we need to convert the string into an integer value and store it in a variable such as Fahrenheit temp. Now there's a method called parseInt that takes a string as a parameter and returns the integer that it represents. This method is different from the methods we've used so far. It doesn't describe the behavior of an object, and it doesn't need the instance variables of any object to do its job. It simply takes the string as a parameter, decodes it, and returns the integer that the string represents. So, nevertheless, as we've said before, no methods or variables can exist outside a class. The Java library designers have put this method in a class called integer. A method that belongs to a class but does not operate on an object is called a class method or static method. This is defined using the keyword static, which means the main method is a class method because it's got static in its method header. When the Java virtual machine starts up, no objects of your class exist. The main method must be static so that the Java virtual machine can call it. Now, do you guys remember the example of the assignment that you had to do for school? You had to find or create the researcher, the writer, the editor, the typist, and the artist, and ask them to do their task and coordinate their efforts. Now, you in that situation are like the main method of a class that is an application. The main method must create the object it needs and ask them to do their tasks. In other words, call their methods.
So the parseInt method of the integer class is a static method. But how do you call it?
Well, you call it by using the ClassName.methodName and give it any parameters it needs in round brackets.
That's almost the same as calling an object method or an instance method.
The expression we need then is integer.parseInt, open round brackets, temp input, close round brackets. Temp input is the parameter. So we've taken that literal value 50 Fahrenheit degrees temp so that it assigns the value returned by this expression to Fahrenheit temp instead. Now here is the whole statement. Okay, now we're done. So make sure your program compiles correctly. So, here's some data for you guys to test your programs. Now, run your program with each of these values to see if you get the correct result.
Mine's right.
So is mine.
Well done, guys. Remember the triangle area program you wrote as the task in lesson 3? Do you guys think you could make that program interactive?
What do you mean by interactive?
Well, the program should get input from the user instead of using literal values.
So the program should read the base and the height of the triangle from the user and display the area.
The base and the height are doubles, so integer.parseInt won't work, will it?
Unfortunately, it won't. What you need this time is double.parseDouble. This is very similar to the integer.parseInt. It's also a static method, this time in the class double. It takes a string as a parameter and returns a value of type double.
My program compiles correctly. Do you have some test data for this program too?
I do indeed. Here it is.
My answers are all correct, except for the second and last one. They've got really long numbers.
Same here.
Let me see. No, there's nothing wrong. You just need to format the output a bit. Guys, we'll focus more on that in our next lesson. So in this lesson, we've learned how to convert strings to ints and doubles using the integer.parseInt and the double.parseDouble methods. Now, it's time for today's task. I want you to apply what you've learnt given the following declarations. Double A gets the value 2.5. Double B gets the value minus 1.5. Int J gets the value 81. And int K gets the value 4. What are the values of the following expressions? A. Math.sqrt open bracket K close bracket. B. Math.sqrt open bracket math.sqrt open bracket J close bracket close bracket. C. Math.abs open bracket B close bracket. D. Open bracket int close bracket math.round open bracket B close bracket. E. Open bracket int close bracket math.round open bracket A close bracket plus open bracket int close bracket math.round open bracket B close bracket. F. Math.pow open bracket A comma 2 close bracket. Well guys, we've come to the end of another long week. So go home, relax, and don't forget, enjoy the task.